co-host Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico, and Carlos Ponce in Mexico City. I am tuning in from Los Angeles. Welcome to the show one more time today. It's Wednesday, April 29th. We have a guest today, Ameya Deshmukh. Did I say that right?
Close enough.
Maya.
Did I
Well,
get
let's do this.
Ameya,
Ameya.
Ameya.
Okay, cool.
Ameya.
Maya. So let's do this. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let the audience know who you are.
Start with properly pronouncing your name for us.
Yeah,
Sure thing. So I'm Ameya Deshmukh. You guys got it right the second time around. Right now I'm in San Jose, California. I do marketing at startup companies, and I've been doing that for about 6 or 7 years now. And I've worked at startup companies of all stages, everything from coffee shop, napkin stage startup companies to startup companies that have raised their Series C and D rounds. So I'm really familiar with the really early stage process of figuring out what the marketing campaigns need to be and how to set up the marketing infrastructure at a company, and then going through that process of being very scrappy and then scaling it from there as well. Places to connect with me further, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, Ameya Deshmukh 10. I have my own website, ameyadeshmukh.com, where I write regularly. And you can listen to my podcast, AD4 dash Startup Marketing, and that's available on Spotify, iTunes, Anchor, and your favorite podcasting apps. Really excited to be on the show today, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So you're the startup marketer. That's awesome. And I would say probably today, even though someone might be listening who's not a startup, a lot of companies are finding themselves needing to pivot, and that's probably very applicable there. You got to start something new, got to kind of take the same approach. Tell us a little bit about your business, the company Ameya Systems, correct? Tell us
Absolutely.
How that came about. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Ameya Systems was founded by Eyal Grajewski and his co-founder, and that came about as a pivot from their original company, First Job, which was designed to help college students get jobs. But what they realized after working with some of the largest employers in the world is that candidate engagement was a serious problem, that recruiters were overwhelmed with the amount of early stage recruiting conversations that they needed to have. So they created Ameya, which is a conversational AI for recruiting. And essentially what it does is it makes the entire recruiting process much more quick, much more efficient, and much more human. And currently Ameya works with over 50 of the Fortune 500 and 6 of the 8 world's largest global staffing agencies.
Wow, congratulations. So while there's some companies that have had major layoffs, there's all the companies who can't seem to find enough people right now. It's a really odd time. So let's go right into it and learn a little bit more. Kim, will you introduce the topic today, and let's kick this off?
Sure thing. Thank you, Tulio. So the topic that Ameya chose for us today is the future of recruiting strategy in the decade of disruption. And the tagline here is, can companies use digital transformation to adapt to a future where the market is changing at lightning speed? So we're going to tap in directly with the company, right? Ameya Systems, which it's my understanding that uses a lot of artificial intelligence conversation, as you just said, to engage candidates. Now, one of the first things I want to ask you about, Ameya, is this term. I believe you use this. It's a term called tech acceleration, right? What is tech acceleration?
Yeah, it's almost got my name right. People always mix up Ameya and Ameya. So Ameya is the marketer, Ameya Systems is the company.
I'm so sorry.
No worries. Tech acceleration, yes. So it's a term I came up with in an article I wrote earlier this year after I read a analysis from a Bank of America futurist who essentially got a group of industry analysts, about 100 to 130 industry analysts together, and asked them, like, what is going to be the future of business and technology? And what they all identified and concluded was that technology change is happening faster than ever before in human history. And as a result of that, the way we do business and various business strategies, units, entire business models are being disrupted and changed by technology faster than ever before in human history. And if you look at this trend and map it out even across the past 120 years, going as far back as the Wright brothers, you see that technology has been accelerating, and the rate of change in technology and the rate of change in the world and in business has been accelerating along with it. So that's the term tech acceleration.
Thank you. And now part of obviously these advances in technology is this idea of artificial intelligence. So how is Maya Systems approaching artificial intelligence and utilizing it?
Right. So the primary way we're utilizing artificial intelligence is to solve a really important problem in recruiting right now. And the one of the biggest problems in recruiting right now is the black hole. And if you've ever applied for a job, you've experienced the black hole. And what the black hole is when you fill out a form on a company's website and you send in your application and then you never hear anything back. Well, what we found in our research is that the recruiting black hole, it damages employer brands. It actually has a negative impact on your sales and revenue, especially if you're a B2C company. And it really slows down the hiring process. So one of the key benefits that Maya provides is instead of your candidates going into this black hole where they hear nothing from you and your recruiters then having to sort through 250 resumes on average per position that they open, what Maya does is it goes in and uses an AI technology called natural language processing, among others, to go and create very human, very transparent, two-way engaging conversations with candidates, and then connects them and floats the most engaged candidates up to the top to connect them with the recruiters.
But how does it do that? I mean, you still have to. How does it learn to figure out which candidate to bubble up, so to speak? Does the end user provide feedback along the way on what's working, what's not working? How do you actually optimize it so that it continues to learn? How is it set up?
Absolutely. So that's a complicated question, but the core of how you would use Maya if you were deploying it at your company today is we have a database, if you will, of conversations. And these are conversations that we've tested with our clients, that we've built in collaboration with our clients, that we know are effective and are highly engaging. Maya is getting upwards of 80, 90% engagement rates to its conversations, right? So we deploy these Maya conversations in that specific job family and job description, or specific job requisition rather, that you're trying to increase the speed and efficiency of your hiring process for. And we work with our clients very closely to make sure that we're creating a conversation where they're learning what they want to and need to learn about their candidates, and they're able to do it faster.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, because I think this is a really important point to make. A lot of people assume, AI is just going to do the work for you, but there is some setting up. There is some intelligence you have to actually feed into the platform that's human, or that originates with humans. So if I'm hearing correctly, you work with the client to put in some best practices or approaches that seem to engage better, and then the system optimizes based on the end user or the candidate that's applying. So what kind of improvement have you seen for those companies in terms of increasing, one, the quality of the candidates they actually do get to interview, and two, like you said, on the B2C, sometimes if you apply for a job and you don't hear from that company, you kind of tarnish the brand reputation. Some people stop doing business with them. It's like you don't even have the decency to say, hey, thanks for applying, but you're not a good fit. Why should I do business with you? I mean, people go there, and rightfully so. I mean, they don't realize there's 1,000 people sometimes applying, and there's some machine is just kind of swifting through this ineffectively, of course. So how are you guys showing improvement in terms of effectiveness versus some of these, what are they called? TPS system? What do they call the typical system they use now, which are matching keywords?
A resume parser instead of an ATS?
Yes. So how is this better? What kind of throughput improvement have you seen from that?
Yeah, well, it's not really comparable to a resume parser, right? Because we're actually engaging candidates in conversations and then scheduling the candidates that meet whatever criteria our clients have set for them with recruiters, with interviews on the recruiters' calendars, right? And we're also surfacing all of the candidates that apply along with the conversational data that we have and gathered about them. So recruiters can not only engage with the candidates that we've surfaced and scheduled, but they can also see all the candidates who've applied and see what their responses and answers are, so they can follow up with them as well. Now, there are about like 3 or 4 questions in that one, so remind me if I forget any of them. But the candidate experience question and the damage to the employer brand, that is really important. We found in working with our customers that candidate experience is very, very important in today's world. And there's a really, really famous case study. This is not a Maya case study, but it features Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Media, sorry. And what they found was that candidate experience and a bad candidate experience was costing them about $4 to $6 million a year in lost sales. And by working on improving their candidate experience, they were able to not only recover their sales the following year, but actually produce an increase in them.
Wow, interesting. Tim, I think you had a couple of other questions.
Yeah, I love that. I wanted to kind of touch back on that black hole you mentioned, and what Tulio kind of came full circle on with, even if the response is, thank you, but you're not a fit for us, it's appreciated. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to bring back to this idea of the natural language processing and some of the difficulties that happen there, particularly even cultural differences, right? It's not just language. Are you speaking English, French, Spanish, Chinese, etc., but it has a lot to do with even where we come from. And one of those elements has to be this idea of giving negative feedback and the way in which we process, this is acceptable feedback, or you're rude, or whatever that might be. Do you, in addition to language, take cultural elements of language processing into consideration as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great point to bring up, because if you're not taking into account these factors, what you'll create is a conversation that has inherent bias against someone that's not from your cultural paradigm, if you will, right? So as a company, we're 100% focused on diversity and inclusion, and the entire mission of the company is to create a more equitable and accessible world of work and job market for everyone, regardless of what language you speak, what culture you're from, right, or how you communicate. So as part of that mission, we work very diligently in testing our conversations and working with our candidates and clients, and sorry, not our candidates, but our clients, to make sure that our conversations are not injecting unconscious bias into the hiring process and screening people out that might be communicating a little bit differently or might be approaching it from a different culture.
I love that. Thank you. And then another question I have is, at what point does the handoff occur? At what point does the system consider, all right, artificial intelligence out of the way, time for a human recruiter to come in?
Right. So depending on how you're using Maya, there's maybe two main use cases, right? You can use Maya Recruitment Process Automation, RPA. That's sitting in the application path. So a candidate's coming, applying, and then Maya RPA is having a conversation with them, scheduling candidates that meet criteria our clients decide, and then surfacing the entire list of candidates as well. And that's where the pass off is happening there, right? So now the recruiter is taking it from there, having conversations directly with the candidate. But at the same time, Maya is still active in case the candidate has any questions or if they want to reschedule their interview time. Maya takes care of that. Now, with the other use case, Maya Outreach, you have this, recruiting teams have these passive candidate databases. And these are essentially millions and millions of people who they've collected information about over the years, and they're living in this database. But a lot of the data is out of date. So Maya Outreach goes and recruiters can select a segment of their candidates and have Maya reach out, see if they're interested in new jobs, create a conversation, and then bubble up anyone that's interested in hearing more about new work to the recruiters. And then again, the recruiter is going to take it from there. So we're really focused on eliminating the high volume, repetitive communication tasks from the recruiter's day-to-day job and focusing on just having them connect with more candidates, have more human conversations with candidates, and just make the hiring process faster, more human, and a better experience for both sides of the table.
Have you seen any particular niche in which your value proposition, your tool, and your strategy works better than the others? For example, technology against other more brick and mortar type of organizations. Things like that. Have you spotted any difference in adoption, for example, in terms of the nature or the niche or the vertical?
Yeah, I'm not completely sure if I can answer this question totally, but I have seen. So right now, let's talk about the hiring that's going on with COVID-19.
Okay.
So there's a surge in hiring for critical infrastructure positions, right? And as a company, we're really focused on helping our clients meet those hiring needs for critical infrastructure positions. And we've seen really, really high engagement rates in healthcare, in warehouse, logistics, delivery, transportation, retail, grocery, supply chain, industrial, pretty much any critical infrastructure position that's hiring right now. We've seen a effective use of Maya being used in that context.
Thank you.
Does it work better? I know in many cases with AI, at least in marketing, it usually works better when it's tackling thousands, if not millions, of end users, right? It's permeating different scenarios when it's got massive amounts of data. It's usually harder when it's like a sample of 10, right? So is this a better fit for companies that are recruiting for thousands of people, different roles, or can this be used by a small business that's just recruiting 3-4 jobs? What's the difference between the two, if any, and how does that apply?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of our clients right now they're Fortune 500 companies. We're working with enterprise companies with high volume recruiting needs and staffing companies. So we have 6 of the 8 world's largest global staffing companies. And one of them, for example, has deployed Maya at over 300 different sites, right? So, and we have a lot of conversations every day, and we're having a lot right now. I think for one of our clients, we had 100,000 conversations with different candidates in a single day last week. So these are the general use cases that we're seeing, and it's generally more higher volume, more amount, because that's where the overload really starts to kick in for recruiting teams. Because some of these recruiting teams will be responsible for so many roles, but they're teams of 20 people, 15 people, 30 recruiters, and they're hiring thousands of candidates. And that's a really, really challenging place to be as a recruiter and as a talent acquisition leader.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only imagine. I remember was with a marketing automation company that had developed a machine learning algorithms for below the marketing campaigns, and it worked with millions of customers, and did some analysis that showed where in order to effectively do what the AI algorithm was doing, you needed like 1,800 analysts to be able to do enough A/B testing to permutate different scenarios and personalize an offer. So besides improving the reputation of the brand because you're being more responsive, and you mentioned something that, some of these teams are 20 people trying to tackle thousands of hires. Have you guys done any analysis in terms of the number of individuals this would require without this technology in order to be as effective? And are company looking at that as part of their value proposition equation? What makes them decide? My question is, what makes a company decide to move forward with Maya system? Is it about savings because they don't have enough people, or is it a combination of those things? What's like the thing that usually gets them to say, yeah, we need this?
Yeah, it's a little different for different companies, right? So for some of our customers, it's really about the candidate experience. Their talent acquisition leaders are really bought into the idea that they need to create a solid candidate experience and that they need to digitally transform the way that they're operating and make better use of the candidate data they already have that's sitting in your ATS, if you remember from our passive candidate discussion earlier. Now, there's also the benefit of speed, right? So what we found is that we've been able to create a 2.5x increase in overall recruiting funnel conversions and a 4 times increase in placement rates. Now, placement rates is a metric that staffing and recruiting companies really care about because that directly ties to revenue. The more candidates you place and the faster you place them, the more revenue you're making. So not only is it a cost savings, recruiter efficiency, and time savings benefit that we're providing, but also a direct and measurable impact to your revenue if you're a staffing or recruiting company. And I think these 3 elements together, the third one being candidate experience and kind of the more difficult to measure impacts that has on employer brand and long-term down funnel effects like employee engagement for someone that has had a good candidate experience is higher. Net promoter score is higher as well. They're more likely to speak in good terms about your brand to their online and in-person networks, right? These things are tough to measure, but these 3 factors together are really what makes a compelling case for the use of Maya for our customers.
That sounds great. I'm sorry, before you go into that question, I just have one quick question. Is there a plan at some point, and I think this would be so valuable, where an organization would have, let's say, like a seal on their website that says, we are certified by X, right? That's like a telltale sign that you're not going to end up in a black hole. Right now, it's like as a candidate, you don't know if you're going to get processed fast enough or how long it's going to take unless you've gotten feedback from someone else who's recommended you, or you've taken the time to look at Glassdoor to see how long it takes to get hired. Is there a plan at some point where, a company could say, hey, if we have this sealed, you as a candidate will know things are going to fly a lot faster? Is there a possibility where the industry, the recruiting industry, could adopt such a standard where you have this sort of seal of a certification that says, hey, we get things done fast and we are responsive? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. I love that idea. There's actually already a governing body, if you will, inside the talent acquisition space that gives out this award called the Candidate Experience Awards. And they name companies that create a really, really strong candidate experience every year and present them with this award. And they write a report explaining how they've created this strong candidate experience. There's also other awards. I forget the name of it, but one of our customers, L'Oreal, actually won an award for the candidate experience they've created with Maya. And that's really, really good. But right now, there isn't any seal that a candidate can come to a website and see like, oh, they have a gold standard candidate experience here. This is going to be great, right? But what we have found in our data is we collect something called a candidate satisfaction score, which at the end of an interaction with Maya, it asks them, from a scale of 1 to 10, how did you feel your experience with working with Maya was? And our average score is a 9.8. And we get like rave reviews from candidates constantly. They're emailing recruiters at the company once they start talking to them and talking about how great their experience communicating with Maya was. The recruiters are really happy because they're engaging with much more engaged, positive, excited candidates. And we've even found that improving the candidate experience early on in the hiring process, there's different stages to the hiring process, right? And towards the end, you have this stage called the offer stage. And we found a good candidate experience at the front end translates into a higher offer conversion level at the back end. So it really creates value when you focus on delivering a good experience to candidates. And that's what Maya is all about.
Sounds like it could be an opportunity for you guys. You know how they have the best places to work seal? You could have the Maya system, best candidate experience there, right?
I love that, yeah.
We want some...
exactly.
We want some royalty and perpetuity for that idea. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, exactly. I love that too. This idea, Nearsoft, our company, is a great place to work certified. So it'd be great to be a great place to apply certified as well. And I like this idea that you actually brought up the ratings with those who've experienced Maya, because I was actually wondering how much the AI, the natural language processing, is sort of able to pull the wool over people's eyes. Like, is it obvious or not obvious that you're talking right with a machine? And also, if you have any particular story, like, is there an actual story that comes to mind with somebody who, I don't know, maybe traditionally would have been filtered out automatically, and because of their ability to converse, something was captured and pulled, and like, you know what, this person is valuable, like candidate-wise. Or I don't know if I'm making myself clear in my
you're making
question, but is
sense.
there a story that you could tell us?
Yeah,
A
so
human story.
great two questions there again. That first question, pulling the wool over candidates' eyes, no, we absolutely do not do that. Immediately when Maya opens up a conversation with any candidate, we make it clear right away that they're talking to a recruiting assistant or an AI, and we're very upfront that this is in fact a AI or that they're conversing with. So there is no intention of deceiving candidates that they're conversing with the AI, right? But what we try to do, or what the technology is focused on from an NLP perspective, like you brought up, is we know the candidate knows they're having a conversation with an AI. We want them to know that, but we want the conversation to feel as human as possible, and we want it to feel really engaging and positive, and we want a back and forth, a two-way exchange of information, right? So that's what we facilitate, and candidates find that they really enjoy that. Like, I think there's a report out that was done on consumer-facing chatbots for like e-commerce companies for Help Center and things like that, and it found that about 70% of Americans said they would rather engage with a chatbot than not hear anything at all. So even though they know that it's an automation, because the experience is so good, they're still very happy with it, right? Sorry, you had another question as well. Can you remind me what that was?
Yes, I was wondering if there's any particular actual human story, like a review that comes to your mind that you could share with us about the success.
Yeah.
Trying to make it as personal as possible.
Absolutely. Okay, so I can't actually talk about any particular candidates, right? Because that's confidential information. But what I can share with you is a story from L'Oreal. They used Maya to communicate with about 15,000 applicants, international applicants, for intern positions they were hiring. They were filling about 80 intern positions. And what they were able to do when they used Maya in the context of the recruiting strategy is that they had the most diverse group of interns that they've hired in L'Oreal's history. And that's who they brought on. And that's because Maya surfaced up candidates that previously they wouldn't have been able to find, not because they were not because that through any fault of their own, but just that had got lost in the standard process that's out there.
I love that. That's great.
Well, we're coming up on time. I'd love to wrap up by just getting some feedback from you in terms of what's your journey been like, building this company. What were some of the roadblocks you faced early on, and what are some of the, promising opportunities that you're seeing as a result of some of the recent changes or recent, developments?
Right. So I've been with Maya actually today is my 1-year anniversary with Maya. So it's really funny that we have our
congratulations
episode today. Yeah. It's been a really amazing journey. We've been growing steadily year over year. We've been growing the whole time that I've been a part of Maya. We're working with the biggest brands in the world. We're working with really, really smart individuals and leaders at talent acquisition organizations like staffing companies. And the thing I'm most happy about, and that what really gets me excited about working here, is that not only does it make business sense to deploy Maya and conversational AI, but from an ethical perspective and a social good or positive impact to the world perspective, it is actually improving diversity. And it's especially during times like this, where what's the current unemployment rate? We have like 20 million Americans out of work, or I'm fuzzy on the exact number, but it's very high. And right now, more than ever, we need speed and efficiency in hiring, and we need it to feel very human. And Maya is delivering that for our clients that are using us for hiring for critical infrastructure positions. And that makes me very excited, because if we can get America back to work faster, and even as COVID continues to change the dynamic, that's a net good in my perspective.
I really appreciate you saying that. And it's very encouraging to me, because I think for anyone, I have experienced unemployment, and there comes a time after, I'm sure this quantity varies from person to person, but it can be extremely discouraging. and extremely, depressing. And I think to have any type of tool, whether it's a machine or not, that can add more humanity into that mix to garner any type of encouragement, to encourage, people to keep going in their search, I think is amazing. So any company that could adopt something, Maya or otherwise, to keep their recruiting process as human as possible is a win, right? In my book as well.
And I actually realized that something I said might be misconstrued. So our position is that, we don't have any political position on whether or not people should be going back to work immediately or not. I think that whatever healthcare and government officials decide there is what should be followed, right? But for people that are underemployed and that there's critical infrastructure positions available, we think that those people should get matched up to those as fast as possible. And that's what I'm excited about doing. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're wrapping up. We're up on time. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thanks for the conversation. We'd love to have you back again sometime in the future when things change and see how you guys are progressing along. We have a wrap-up show next Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Yep. We're going to wrap up 2 shows next Monday. It's usually 10 minutes. So for those of you who have joined or would like to get a quick wrap-up, maybe you missed yesterday's show, in 10 minutes, we're going to wrap up the key points from both shows. So join us. And anyone who's watched the shows who wants to participate and be one of the squares right here on the screen, please just direct message any one of us. We will be happy to have you as a guest who's providing your feedback. We'd love to have participants from the audience in the show. So that's the recap show on Monday. And then what do we got lined up next week, Carlos?
Sure. We got also a double whammy. On Tuesday, we have Scott Robinson, one of the principals, one of the founders of the app company. And also on Wednesdays, we're going to have Jesse Fuel with the topic of untapped agility, 7 leadership moves to transform your transformation. That's, I quote, to transform your transformation. So that's what we have for next week, and right here on Dojo Live at 1 p.m. Pacific as usual. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next time. Thank you, Ameya. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Our pleasure.
All right.